Hey everybody, welcome back to another Go Battle League video. Today we will be showcasing a Pokemon that recently got a Community Day Classic, and that is Empoleon. Empoleon in the Go Battle League has been meta for quite some time now, specifically in the Great League and the Ultra League. Today's battles will bring you to the Great League with our Empoleon paired with Gourgeist and Galarian Moltres. And man, you do not want to miss today's battles. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and see just how capable Empoleon is. Hopping into the first match, leading Empoleon into Quagsire. This isn't an ideal lead, so I'm going to have to safe switch into the Gourgeist. Opponent going to send in Altaria, but luckily I'm going to be able to reach the Shadow Ball before they reach their first Sky attack. Shadow Ball will do some pretty sizable damage here, getting it below half health. I'm going to continue to farm. The opponent going to fire off a potential Sky attack, but they actually go for the Flamethrower here. Very interesting here. Gonna continue to farm, and I'm going to land a C-Bomb bait. Hopefully this gets a shield. Yes, it does, which is very nice. I'm gonna continue to farm, the opponent going to reach their Sky attack, and here is when I'm about to make a mistake that you guys should not make. When fighting against an Altaria with a Gourgeist, do not ever fire a C-Bomb at all unless you're trying to bait out their shields, but I thought at this low amount of health, the Altaria would get knocked out after one Incinerate, but it doesn't. The opponent going to take out my Gourgeist here. I'm going to take the Altaria back down with one Metal Sound, but now they just want Switch and Shield Advantage. The Empoleon going to continue to farm, luckily winning CMP against the Quagsire. Quagsire may have reached a potential Mud Bomb. I'm hoping it isn't, because that would probably knock out my Empoleon. Luckily, they are firing off the Aqua Tail here, which is really nice. I'm going to continue to farm. The opponent gets to a second Aqua Tail, and now I'm going to try to land a Drill Peck, but unfortunately, they send in Empoleon for the catch, and I think this game is just over because Empoleon is just not low health enough for my Galarian Moltres to farm down. And they still have a shield, which is why I'm not firing off my fly immediately. But either way, this game is already over pretty much. This Hydro Cannon almost takes out my Galarian Moltres. That is some big damage right there. Opponent going to fire off a second Hydro Cannon. That's going to take out my Moltres. I decide to top left, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Empoleon into Shadow Torterra. This isn't a great lead, so I'm going to send in my Galarian Moltres. Opponent going to send in a Blastoise, and I actually had to decide here. Do I go straight for the Brave Bird? I say yes. Brave Bird hopefully going to take the knockout. It does get shielded, unfortunately, and I decide to let the Galarian Moltres go. Galarian Moltres will get immediately one-shot by the Hydro Cannon. Back in comes the Empoleon here. Empoleon going to get some decent energy here, but the opponent does have Hydro Cannon loaded. Hydro Cannon number 2 about to come in, but thankfully, Empoleon able to make it to a Drill Peck here. Drill Peck going to do some pretty sizable damage before they reach their second Hydro, but they're going to reach a third Hydro here, meaning I'm going to have to use 2 shields eventually just to farm the Blastoise down. Empoleon going to put up the second shield to put up against the Hydro Cannon. Going to be able to get some very nice farm. 2 Drill Pecks loaded on the Empoleon. Back in comes the Torterra, going to go for the first Drill Peck. I'm going to fire off one Metal Sound before the move, but they send in Togekiss. Very interesting play by the opponent as they're out of energy. And right now, I think this game might actually be over. The Gourgeist going to come in. It's taking some damage from the Pecks, but it won't take too much damage from the neutral moves of Psyshock. Gourgeist going to land a C-Bomb here. C-Bomb, this time it will definitely KO compared to that Altaria round that we had last game. Able to make it to a second C-Bomb onto the Torterra and an additional Incinerate. Incinerate and the C-Bomb get it to red health, which is very nice to see. Torterra, very low health, has to fire off this Frenzy Plant if it wants to live, but it does not have a second move loaded. Our Empoleon had that move saved up for the Drill Peck to take out this Torterra, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Empoleon into Clefable. That is a shiny Clefable at that, so very nice to see. Empoleon going to do some decent damage with the Metal Sound. It's going to reach the Hydro Cannon first for the Clefable, but they do send in Jellicent. Luckily for our backline, we have a good amount of answers to the Jellicent. Going to send in the Galarian Moltres to just sucker punch down this entire Jellicent here. Opponent going to get a Surf Off. Surf Off's going to do some pretty sizable damage here, but honestly, we're going to be able to get the Sucker Punch farm down on the Jellicent. Backing will probably be that Clefable there. Clefable going to come in, win CMP with their Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash is going to take out my Galarian Moltres, but I'm not too worried about that much yet. Opponent now going to safe switch into their Furret, which apparently might have been their closer, or their safe switch, whatever. But either way, we're going to fire off the Hydro Cannon onto that Furret. Furret is going to have to shield it up here if it wants to save its Clefable. We're going to shield back a Trailblaze from the Furret. Furret's Sucker Punches will be doing more damage from here on out, but I'm not too worried about that. Empoleon going to reach a second Hydro Cannon. Opponent is going to reach a Swift here. Swift would easily knock out, so I'm actually going to shield here just to do some additional damage. Opponent going to send back in the Clefable for some reason, but it's going to be hit with very hard-hitting Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon leaves it on red, going to get farmed down by 3 Incinerates here. Very nice to see. But the opponent does get a Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash will do some pretty sizable damage to the Gourgeist, but we do have double C-Bomb loaded, and I think this game is already over. C-Bomb number 1, going to get the Furret to red health. C-Bomb number 2, going to get the knockout. Opponent was just not enough health to live those attacks, and that is a good game. We move on to the next match, leading Empoleon into a Hakamo'o. This isn't a really great lead, especially since the Hakamo'o does reach Brick Break in just for Dragon Tails. Either way, Empoleon going to reach the Drill Peck first. Drill Peck's going to get shielded by the Hakamo'o. Hakamo'o now going to fire back with the Brick Break. Brick Break is going to be shielded by me. Drill Peck number 2 isn't reached, thankfully. And Drill Peck number 2 is going to get shielded, unfortunately. And the opponent now going to fire off a second Brick Break, which will take out my Empoleon. We're going to send in our Galarian Moltres here, trying to get a single fly off of the Hakamo'o, but they reach another Brick Break, potentially. Yep, it is the Brick Break. I actually thought it was a Rock Tomb back in those battles, but either way, at least it was just a Brick Break. It didn't harm our attack too much, so now we're going to be able to fire off this Fly. Fly can easily take out the Hakamo'o here. And now we're going to have to see what they have in the back. They do have a Florges. I'm going to send in our Gourgeist to wall their moveset, but they send in a Furret. Furret Sucker Punches are going to start adding up onto the Gourgeist here quite a bit. But we do have an energy head start. The C-Bomb is going to do some sizable damage onto the Furret. Furret already at less than half health. And they're going to fire back with a Brick Break for some reason. They are not running Trailblaze here. But either way, we're going to reach a second C-Bomb. And one additional Incinerate after this, we'll be able to get us to our third C-Bomb before we get knocked out. C-Bomb number 3, charging it up on the Gourgeist. Gourgeist going to fire it onto the Florges. Florges gets below half health, but they do have the Chilling Water. The question is, do they have enough for 2? They do not. Galarian Moltres reaches the Fly, and even at -1, this will still knock out the Florges. And that is a good game. Hopping into the final match of the first set, leading Empoleon into Jellicent. This isn't a great lead for the Empoleon, but it's going to be able to reach Drill Peck just before the Jellicent reaches their first Shadow Ball. Drill Peck is going to be reached here. Drill Peck going to do some pretty sizable damage, but it's not enough to take it down to yellow. Jellicent will return fire with the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball almost one-shots my Empoleon. Empoleon going to reach a last second Drill Peck just before he gets hexed down here. But actually, I'm not going to let it get hexed down. I'm going to send in the Galarian Moltres, going to get its Sucker Punches in. The Sucker Punch is going to take out this Jellicent before it can reach another Surf after this Surf, thankfully. But the opponent comes in with a Primeape, and I think this game is already over. My backline just does not do well against the Primeape. Primeape is just so spammy with the Rage Fists and the Karate Chops. Opponent going to fire off a Rage Fist here. Rage Fist will not KO, but it will get me very low. Opponent going to get farm. Oh no. Gorgai is going to come in, but it's going to have to deal with so much energy from the Primate. Primate is going to do some massive damage with the Rage Fists here. Rage Fist number 2 is going to be get shielded. Rage Fist number 3 also has to get shielded, unfortunately. We just have to hope that whatever is in the back is something very scared of Gorgeist. Gorgeist is going to be able to reach the first C-Bomb. C-Bomb hopefully going to take the knockout on the Primate. Primate, it does. But in comes a Shadow for Alligator, and I actually think this game is over. I don't know if the C-Bomb here is going to be enough to take out this for Alligator. Going to fire out the second C-Bomb. First C-Bomb did get the shield, thankfully, but the second C-Bomb does not take the knockout, and I think this game is over. They're going to just Hydro Cannon and farm down my Empoleon, and that is unfortunate for our final game in the first set. Hopping into the next match, leading Empoleon into Shadow Drapion. Here, this is where I learned a lesson about CMP. So apparently, in this matchup, Empoleon actually does win CMP over the Drapion, but I wasn't sure about that yet, so I let them fire off the Crunch and shielded it, and then I returned fire back with the Hydro Cannon. Both moves shielded up, going to try to reach the second Hydro Cannon, and that's when I learned it. Apparently, Empoleon does win CMP against Drapion. Very nice. Opponent going to use their second shield on the Drapion. Very interesting here. Opponent not going to return fire with the Crunch. Crunch is not going to be shielded. Crunch gets me very low. In comes a Mud Slapper here, but we're able to send in our Gourgeist. Gourgeist is going to do some pretty decent damage with the C-Bomb, but I'm going to actually under-tap here because I want extra farm on this Gourgeist. The opponent is going to return fire with the Rock Slide. Rock Slide will hurt, so I'm going to shield the attack. Opponent is now just 2 Incinerates away from getting farmed down. It gets farmed down. The opponent thinking about what to switch in. Back in comes a Shadow for Alligator. Oh man, they do actually to get a nice catch on that Drapion. Going to have to block some messages in the middle of our battle, but either way, we're going to probably be able to Sucker Punch farm down on this Drapion here, which is very nice. Opponent goes for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail doesn't even get me to half health. Now I am, but either way, the for Alligator doesn't have enough energy to reach a Hydro Cannon. Brave Bird will easily nuke this thing to the ground, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Empoleon into Florges. This is a really good lead for the Empoleon. Empoleon is going to fire off some metal sounds, and they safe switch into their Sableye. Sableye is going to put some massive pressure onto the Galarian Moltres as it comes in. It's just to get fired by a Dazzling Gleam, but luckily we do have shields, obviously, as this is just the start of the match. Galarian Moltres is going to return fire with the Fly. Fly is going to get shielded by the Sableye here. Sableye continuing to farm, reaching another Dazzling Gleam here, but it's actually a foul play. Oh my goodness, I'm just shielded a very strong bait here. I'm going to return fire with the Fly here. Fly is going to get shielded again by the Sableye. Sableye does definitely want to keep itself alive, and so does its trainer. Either way, they're going to take down our Galarian Moltres, but they come in with the Gourgeist here, going up against our Gourgeist, but they're 2 moves. They have a 2-turn delay here, meaning they're going to get Shadow Ball farmed down, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Empoleon into Charge Bug. This is a great lead, so I'm going to have to send in our Gourgeist here. Gourgeist will be able to do some nice damage with the Incinerates, but the opponent is not actually switching out just yet. Opponent going to fire off an Exeter. Exeter will do some sizable damage. In comes a Credilli. Credilli going to be met with a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will do some decent damage, so they decide to shield. I'm gonna now bait with the C-Bomb here, hoping to grab the second shield, but unfortunately I do not get it. Opponent going to continue to farm with those bullet seeds here, as they do have faster pacing rock tombs than the grass knots, but they will fire off the rock tomb here. I'm actually going to safe switch back into my Empoleon just so I can get some metal sounds off. Hoping to farm down the Credillia, but they do vote for the grass knot. Back in comes that Charge Bug. Charge Bug is going to be doing some nice damage with the Volt switches. I'm going to fire out return with a Hydro Cannon here, but I do get farmed down. I'm going to have to come back in with the Gourgeist here, but luckily it does win CMP against Charge Bug. Very nice to see, but unfortunately in the back. They have a Bastiodon, and I think this game is just over. Oh my goodness, the Gorgeist is getting farmed down from the Smackdowns. Can can it reach a second move? Probably not. And with our Galarian Moltres without payback, it's probably not going to land a single good charge attack here. Mastodon continuing to farm. I'm gonna have to shield this Stone Edge here. Stone Edge is going to do a lot of damage to the Galarian Moltres, as you know. I'm gonna have to continue to farm here. They're going to send back in the Credilli. Credilli is going to get met with the Fly. Fly is going to take it out, but I don't think there's anything else I can do. If I had payback, it would take down the Bastiodon, but unfortunately, it's just too late. The game is over here. Stone Edge takes the knockout, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Empoleon into Wigglytuff. Even though this is a good lead, this actually ended up being one of my most intense battles so far. The opponent going to safe switch into their Mud Slapper, which is Marowak. Marowak going to be met by the Gorgeist. Gorgeist is not going to shield here because they only went for 4 Mud Slaps, not 5, to get the Bone Club. Gorgeist now going to reach the C-Bomb. C-Bomb will do some pretty big damage. Opponent decides not to shield. They're going to continue firing off the Bone Clubs for some reason. This is not a great play by the opponent, but either way, we have to see what they are going to do with their backline. Opponent going to get hit by the C-Bomb. C-Bomb takes the knockout. They're going to come back in with that Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff will do some sizable charm damage. I don't think I'm going to even be able to reach 2 C-Bombs here because of just how much damage the charms do. Back in comes the Empoleon. Empoleon going to be able to reach the Hydro Cannon just before they reach their Icy Wind here. Icy Wind, actually no, Hydro Cannon is going to do some very big damage. So they actually ended up shielding. They must have something weak to the Empoleon in the back. In comes a Stunfisk. You know, if a Stunfisk is going to do some massive damage to my remaining amount of Pokemon here, then this is just not looking great for our team. Galarian Moltres is going to have to return fire with the Fly. Fly is going to do some nice damage here, but honestly, I don't think Galarian Moltres has any usage here. Galarian Moltres is just going to get farmed down, get hit by a discharge, and be knocked out. And now it's all up to the Empoleon to save this game. Empoleon, I'm going to have to double shield on Stunfisk's charge moves. Stunfisk is going to fire off the first discharge. That game comes in the Wigglytuff though. Wigglytuff has just been asked to be freely farmed down here. Swift will not take the knockout, but I'm very low. Opponent gonna send back in the Stunfisk, and let's see, can the Empoleon survive that Thunder Shock? Thunder Shock is lit. The end screen is not shown here on the research tasks here. Hydro Cannon number 2 is reached, takes down the Stunfisk, and that is a close game. Hopping into the final match of today's video, leading Empoleon into Shadow Drapion. This is a matchup that we're already familiar with, as we know that Empoleon will always win CMP against the Drapion. Empoleon going to fire off the Hydro Cannon first. Hydro Cannon is not going to get shielded by the Drapion. Drapion almost gets knocked out from that Hydro Cannon there. Drapion going to return fire with the Crunch. In comes a Mud Slapper, and in comes our Gorgeist. Gorgeist is going to get some nice incinerates into the Gastrodon before we're going to be able to reach our C-Bomb. C-Bomb is going to do quite a bit of damage, so I'm actually deciding to underfarm here, undercharge, and going to get a farm down here, which is really nice. They're going to come in with a Fearow, but they're going to be met with 2 C-Bombs here. 2 C-Bombs is going to pressure at least 1 shield, and I know that because in these recordings, I knew I got a shield in this final matchup here. C-Bomb going to get shielded by the Fearow, but Fearow has nowhere to run when it's getting pressured by Galarian Moltres' Sucker Punches. So stab Sucker Punches doing so much damage, and with just 2 shields, it's going to be able to farm down the Fearow. Shield number 2 comes up. Drill Peck, not a problem for our Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres is going to get the farm down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall, and that is a good game. In these 10 battles, we were able to reach 2,279 ELO in the Great League with this Empoleon team, and honestly, I'm pretty glad with it, as I did manage to run 7-3. I was hoping for 8-2, so it would be for much better peak content, but either way, we managed to make the 7-3, able to gain up 70 elo inside the Great League when it was already competitive enough, even though it's an interlude season. And honestly, my final thoughts about Empoleon. Empoleon is a very strong Pokemon in general, but it really depends on how you pair it up with its partners. In my video, we used Gourgeist and Galarian Moltres, and honestly, the reason why I chose these two is because Gourgeist has some very nice coverage to help cover up the Mud Slap problems, and Galarian Moltres can take care of some additional Mud Slappers as well. Galarian Moltres can also take care of Jellicent, which was shown in some of these battles here. And honestly, overall, this team was pretty great to run. It was really fun. And yeah, so that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Tell me if you guys like this commentary or not. And I'll see you next time.